You are now watching Zach Lesage, the best place to learn about competitive Pokemon TCG. Let's get it! Yo, what's poppin' peeps? Welcome back to the channel, Zach Lesage here. Today we are going to be covering over the top 16 decks from the Late Night Series number 27 event. With over 200 players playing in this event, we didn't necessarily trigger the 227 players necessary for the Phase 2 Swiss, the extra round Phase 1, but it is one of those things where we did have a little quick, efficient tournament with 8 rounds into a top 16. We have all these 16 deck lists to show you, and I'm going to put a link to the standings in the description below so you can kind of see how this event played out. Really strong players in our top 16, so we are going to be kind of sharing those decks, how this thing goes. I kind of give you my thoughts on what I think about everyone's list, what I like, what I don't, how their strategies work. And if you are one of the players who played these decks, or if you know a thing or two about the decks, feel free to hit me up in the comments below letting me know why you played these cards, anything you'd want to change, anything else like that. So that'd be really cool if we could do that. Give this video a thumbs up if you haven't already. Subscribe to the channel. We're so close to passing 10K. Let's absolutely smash that number and get those remaining 400 or so subs. And yeah, we'll jump into our top 16 deck lists. So here you have it, the events from the Late Night number 27 event. Absolutely awesome. We're going to be diving right into it with Victor Garcia playing Jolteon VMAX. We're going to explain the strategy for each individual deck once and kind of go over everything, maybe explain people's runs, what they lost to. We'll see how it goes. So we are going to see Victor Garcia playing Jolteon VMAX. The goal is to use Jolteon VMAX here to use Max Thunder Rumble as efficiently as possible, doing 100 damage to the active, 100 damage to your opponent's bench. You get that with the Headbutt Tantrum or the Quick Shooting. It's a general strategy. I'm looking at the list here. I think everything looks great. I'm not a fan of the one capture energy. I think this is pretty much close to the exact same list that I would play, except I think I play -1 Fan of Waves, which I think 2 Fan of Waves is great, and I do not play a capture energy. I play a third lightning, so reasonably not a huge fan of the extra capture energy there, but it is what it is. It's really one of those things where Jolteon VMAX is certainly powerful. The one capture energy probably isn't going to hurt it. I just don't see how it absolutely helps it. Some people love that card, some people do not. We're going to see what did they lose to. They ended up losing to Dracozolt, which is a very poor matchup overall, as I can tell off the top of my head. But we'll get there in a second. Yeah, Dracozolt apparently made top 16 or better at their top 8 or better at this event. We're going to be jumping into Roger Rabid playing Single Strike Urshifu VMAX, a deck that we quite often don't see all the time. Or, I mean, I guess we do see it pretty often. It's one of those things where it's fine. It's just a choice that's kind of it's a little slept on nowadays. It's just not seeing as much success as other single strike variants. That being said, the whole goal of this deck is to use Single Strike Roar, accelerate to your different Pokemon, and you can either power up your Umbreons against decks that are weak to Dark, or gust something up with Dark Signal, or power up Urshifu against things that are weak to Fighting, or just generally powerful. I mean, I think it's pretty cool. I like them one more Pekka, which is great tech against Mew VMAX because you can knock it out in one hit. I think the lineup here looks great. I actually don't like the impact energies. You cannot search them out at all when it comes down to Single Strike Roar with Houndoom. So not really a fan of those. I'm not really a fan of Battle VIP passing this list. It's one of those things where it is what it is. Pretty solid placement overall. I'm personally not a fan of this list. I don't know if they knew if impact energy could be attached, or if they just like that the fact that of its a little bonus effect, just kind of since impact energy is not really seen too much, so it provides every type of energy but only provides one energy at a time. So I guess being part Fighting and Dark really helped. Usually this deck plays capture energy. They can't be poisoned. Again, I'm not really a fan of this. I want to know what Roger ended up losing to. So Roger ended up losing to a Suicune deck, so anything could really happen there. Suicune typically does beat Single Strike, so not really anything surprising. We have Ian Lanifa, sorry if I butcher anyone's name or mispronounce it, playing a kind of dark box deck. That's the name that we're going to go with it on this channel here for the for the future. Just dark box, right? So it is one of those things where, oops, totally clicked on my YouTube page. You can see I have all my other tabs out there checking out to see exactly what's going on. So we do have access to the dark box list. So dark box with Keep Calling. I think it's you're going to be searching things out with Sobble, making sure that you get sacrifice Pokemon, all that kind of good stuff. So the goal of this deck, sacrifice single prize card Pokemon while you're doing some damage to them, either with Weezing, Hoopa, etc. And then you can either go with Sableye, Crazy Claws after using Raihan, or you can use Galarian, Moltres, Fiery Wrath just to kind of knock out your opponent's Pokemon as they draw prize cards. This one played a cool tech of the Rapid Strike Urshifu V, which we saw players even like Azul playing with one Rapid Strike energy, so it seems pretty valid overall. I like a little bit more of a straight up list because I feel like this deck, I don't even know if the Rapid Strike Urshifu beats Jolteon. We'll have to see what did they lose to. We'll have to see. They lost to Mew V, so it is one of those things where it can certainly happen there. So, Mew V can sometimes just overrun that deck. Speaking about UVMax, we are going to be using a Nunez deck, checking that out. So we do see that they have a UVMax deck. So there's Genesect V, UVMax, going with the 3-2 line. It's a very similar list to what Azul, if not the exact same list that Azul played. A lot of players are cutting down to this 3-2 UVMax list just to give themselves more space. I'd rather see at least 4 Mew-Vs because it's better to start with it than not because it has free retreat, but that's just me. Kind of looking at the goal of this deck is to really cross Fusion Strike into whatever you want, and using Techno Blast or Melodious Echo, and I mean all the extra cards there like catchers and switching cups to kind of roll through the deck quick. I mean, this is a very aggressive deck, so we'll have to see how I mean, things that can happen to this deck is just you might have your UVMax prized, something like that, or have to discard one early or something like that. Like it gets tough, or maybe your opponent finds a way to put it at the bottom of the deck and you might not be able to find it. I think this list looks really good overall. Again, I'd like to see at least a 4th Mew-V. That's me. I'm not sure what I would cut from the list for the 4th Mew-V. I think, if anything, I would probably cut the Pokegear, the one of Pokegear, but that's just me. So we are going to delete or go back there, see what they lost to. They ended up losing to another UVMax list, maybe a little bit more of a consistent UVMax list, not so teched out. Moving on to number 12, we have KR54 playing Leafeon VMAX with V-Star. So going 4-2-1. So a very slim line here. A lot of players have been going 4-2-2, 4-3-2. I actually just covered this one and went 4-3-2 with 3 of the VMAX, 2 of the V-Star. I think the extra space that they went for was the Crobat maybe. Overall, this deck is just really use Grass Knot with Galar Mind, kind of increase your opponent's retreat cost so you can hit hard with Grass Knot. Leafeon V-Star seems like a very small tech here, maybe just for the V-Star ability, and I mean, that's completely fine too. I think it's totally valid. I think I'd like to at least see a second Leafeon V-Star. I think the lineup's really small comparatively, and it just is like not the best of both worlds. It's kind of just like a small amount of cards for the both worlds. But I mean, when there's Mew lists that are just running 3-2, I mean, I guess a 4-2-1 is still a hefty line. I really don't see any problems with the list. It's probably just personal preference at this point, but they did fit in other things like double Fan of Waves, and I don't know if they need double Tool Jammer for what it's worth. No one's really playing Air Balloon. I wonder what they ended up losing to. Ended up losing to Gengar. Gengar does play 3 Hiding Dark Energy, so it can get around Leafeon pretty easily. The fact that Leafeon's seeing success in making top 16 is great for Leafeon overall, because Leafeon's been struggling a lot lately. We are going to be moving on to A-Man227 playing Mew VMAX. So we do see this other Mew VMAX, 4-3 Mew, 4-2 Meloetta. I mean, this list does play a Peony to try to get around some things. I think that part's kind of cool. You can search your deck out for some stadiums. Overall, this looks like a very similar Mew list to what we've seen before, or what's within the range of normal. I think everything's built towards the Peony with the 1 of Evolution Incense. The 1 of Vitality Band's also kind of cool. I really don't see any issues. I think that Mules should play 2 Escape Rope, 2 Switch with the amount of Dark Toolbox that is seeing success lately, but really not anything to scoff against or anything else like that. What did they end up losing against? Jolteon. So Jolteon can just Path to the Peak lock them. Even with the Peony, it's probably better not to play Peony because Jolteon, you either win against Jolteon or you do not. So we are going to be moving on to Inferno Hippo playing Suicune Ludicolo. So a deck that we don't always see in the top cuts. Suicune Ludicolo is all about using Blizzard Rondo with Enthusiastic Dance to do some extra damage. I think that part's really cool. And then searching it all out with the Drizzile and Inteleon Shady Dealings package. This version doesn't play Cross Switcher, the one that Kim Pobega popularized, so it's a little bit of an older style version of Suicune Ludicolo. I don't really have any issues with this list. I think this list looks completely fine. There's really nothing that I would change about it too much. They don't play Cross Switcher. Cross Switcher's cool. Everything else about this list seems completely normal if you ask me. So I wouldn't really change too much at all. I think Suicune Ludicolo is pretty much a discovered deck. They probably ended up losing to a Jolteon off the top of my head. There's a Jolteon right there. It is weak to Lightning. Similar to Leafeon, Suicune Ludicolo just isn't well equipped for this metagame, and sometimes it will hit a poor matchup like Jolteon, and that's usually why they do not advance too far. So beyond Inferno Hippo, we will be moving on to Christian Hodes, playing again UVMax. So a lot of UVMaxes in Top Cut here today. Again, we're going to be seeing a very similar list, if not the exact same list as what we saw before. Just kind of with the switching cups, the 3-2 Muse, a lot of players are playing this list. I think they played a 4th catcher and maybe cut one of the cards. I'm not entirely sure what card they ended up cutting. I really don't see an issue with this list. It's just very aggressive. I'm not entirely sure what they would lose to. Let's check out their matches. They ended up losing to an Ice Rider. Ice Rider can go either way with Mew. I'd say Ice Rider can definitely be equipped, so we'll have to see that list once we get there. It's nice to see some variety, though, in this top cuts. Talking about Ice Rider, we are going to see Iatomo 20 playing Ice Rider from Japan. So we do see Ice Rider Calyrex. So the goal of this deck is to be using either Ride of the High King or Max Lance after powering it up with Melanie or Raihan, searching things out. So the triple Fan of Waves is really what a lot of players are playing to get around Mew. I think triple Fan of Waves, Path to the Peaks at 4 can certainly get around Mew VMAX and can put it in a tough spot. Path to the Peak can really just hurt some decks. So I really don't see any issues with this deck. I'm not a huge fan of Suicune V, but having it as an option certainly doesn't hurt. I'm also not a fan of the Crobat V in the deck, but having it as an option certainly doesn't hurt. Those are my personal preferences. Beyond that, I wouldn't change really much about this list. I think this list looks really, really, really solid. So shout out to them for seeing so much success tonight at the late night series. And what did they end up losing to? They ended up losing to Jolteon. So, I mean, obviously, if Jolteon's going to be in the finals, Jolteon did make the finals. It's got to advance somehow, right? So we're going to be moving on to our number 7. We have Zarbin playing Mew VMAX. We are seeing a Mew VMAX list here with Oricorio. Oricorio is great against Jolteon, so I think that that's really cool. We do see access to Judge as well, which is not necessarily a bad tech. So couple catchers, couple boss, a little bit more of a teched out list. I'm not a huge fan of the Vitality bands. Especially if you're playing techs like Oricorio and Judge, I don't necessarily think it makes sense unless you're playing Peony. So those are really some changes that I make. I don't think list desks don't need 3 Psychic Energies because Duraludon is pretty much nowhere to be found right now. It's just not really well positioned. But beyond that, I think this list is fine. There's really nothing wrong with it. It's just a couple changes here or there based on the format, but not every single player can definitely put a pinpoint on where the format's going to be going, myself included. I mean, I'm just talking out here and I'm not playing in these events. I'm just running them and kind of looking at it from a top-down view. If I was playing, I might be thinking it a little bit different, and I think our mind can definitely play some tricks on us. What did they end up losing to? They ended up losing to Suicune. So I'm assuming the Suicune probably has Path. We haven't necessarily looked through it, but we'll get there in a second. We have Kevin Abernathy, definitely a name that I know what's up. I've heard their name a lot of times, and I definitely know them as a player. Playing a pretty straight-up Mew list, very aggressive with triple boss, double catcher. Nothing really wrong here. Again, I'd probably just cut a Psychic Energy. I don't think you need 7 right now. I think you need 6 energies when it comes down to the metagame, especially with the lack of Duraludon. But that's just me overall as a player. So we'll have to see how that plays out. Really nothing wrong with it. We've seen a lot of Mew decks, so sorry, Kevin, we're not necessarily going to go over yours. They ended up losing to Jolteon. I'm assuming Jolteon pathlocked them out of the game. We're going to be going to Evil Turtle, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, with Dracozolt VMAX, something that we don't always see. Dracozolt VMAX is all about Dracozolt VMAX. We see a lot of these kind of 4-4, 3-3, 4-3 kind of lines of just like mono type decks or mono Pokemon decks, and this deck's all about using Spark Trap 60 and then putting 12 damage counters on your opponent's Pokemon if they attack you. The whole goal is so that your opponent doesn't really knock you out, and you have a bunch of disruption cards like Crushing Hammer, and you can also play like Moo Moo Cheese and Lucky Ice Pop. It's kind of funny. Decks like Jolteon will definitely struggle against this. Decks like Mew can definitely struggle against Path to the Peak and Crushing Hammer. Overall, it's a pretty cool list. I don't really know enough about Dracozolt to change much about it, but I do think it's one of those things where it can be effective in playing decks like this. They have been popping up a lot with Stonjourn or Metagross. Even decks that are like Victini are very similar to this, especially in core with Kabus and stuff like that. So really an interesting concept if you're trying to build anything like that. I'd look at all kind of those decks for some kind of structure, but decks like this can definitely be disruptive, and it's nice to see them getting rewarded for making it so far. They ended up losing to Gengar. Gengar can OHKO them, so they won't necessarily be able to heal if they do get OHKO'd. Moving past Evil Turtle, we will be moving into the top 4 to see my Home Slice anti from the Shuffle Squad, Logan McKay. We have 4-3 line of Jolteon. Again, this is a very similar list to what we've seen success with. I think this is actually the same list that we saw before for Jolteon. I'm not a fan of that Capture Energy. I'd rather see it be another Lightning, and I do like Escape Rope a lot in this deck. So I have my Fan of Waves cut for an Escape Rope, but beyond that, I think this list looks solid. Just not a fan of the Capture Energy. What they ended up losing to another Jolteon. Jolteon Mirror is absolutely dreadful in my opinion, so it could really go either way. We have Ryan playing Suicune. So Suicune going with, like I said, there's the Path of the Peaks, there's Crushing Hammers, there's Fan of Waves. Certainly can be good. I don't know how I feel about the Rescue Carrier in this deck. I think that's a really interesting tech. And interesting is the word that I'm going to put nicely out there. I'd love to hear a little bit more from it if Ryan would care to speak on it. Beyond that, I think this list is looking really standard. It's like Suicune Ludicolo, you're going to be using Blizzard Rondo, except it's Blizzard Rondo with, instead of Enthusiastic Dance, they have Crushing Hammer, Fan of Waves, Cape of Toughness, Path to the Peak, all that kind of good stuff. So definitely 2 different takes on the same kind of Suicune deck. Wonder what they ended up losing to Gengar. Gengar can just kind of roll through a lot of things. We'll have to see. We are going to see Lime playing Jolteon VMAX. So let's go check this out. So I do see the Jolteon VMAX list. Again, there is a huge correlation between players that are playing 4 Speed Lightning and 3 Lightning Energies than players who are not. They typically make the finals or go the furthest for the Jolteons. When you play Capture Energies, that card's holding you back in my opinion. I don't know how you're ever getting the 1 out. That's just me though. I think this is literally my exact list, change 1 card, and I'm not sure where that 1 card is coming from. I think it just may be a Fan of Waves for an Escape Rope. Either way, I think this list looks absolutely great. Very standard, on point, on trend. So well constructed list to Lime there. Shout out to them. And we know what they lost to because they came 2nd place. That's going to be Gengar. Josh Cohen, our champion, playing Gengar VMAX. This is literally the exact same 60 that I popularized a couple weeks ago with some of my friends from the Shuffle Squad. The goal is to use Single Strike Roar, accelerate those energies to your Gengar so you could go Fear and Panic, or use GMAX Swallow Up. Not only does this deck smash Mew, it also has that Single Strike Urshifu V to beat Jolteon, and it does beat a lot of other decks in the format. I think this list is pretty much perfect, although I do think you can cut a Path to the Peak for another switching card since Duraludon's not seeing as much play, but Path is also very strong in general. So shout out to Josh on the great list, and they kind of had a very strong run. Jolteon. So 2 Jolteons, couple Ice Riders, lost to Darkbox and Teleon. Darkbox and Teleon was the only deck that they lost to that could certainly be tough. What else? They beat a Mew. They beat a Zacian. Again, pretty easy matchup. They tied Leafeon. They could have totally tried to beat them, but I mean, they're tying in a cut. Hit the same player playing Leafeon. Beat the Dracozolt. So had a really strong run. If Gengar hits the right matchups and draws well, can certainly be a great choice overall. So shout out to every single player who played in this event. Absolutely amazing job. Again, lists are going to be in the description below, so check that out. And that's what we got going on for this event. Hopefully you enjoyed learning a little bit more about the late night number 27, and maybe you'll even get a chance to play in the late night number 28 or any of the other events. Check them out on Play Limitless. You can check that out in the description. By all means, give this video a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel. You can always help support me by becoming a YouTube member. You can get access to all my free deck lists and stuff like that. I mean, it's like $5 a month. So I post a bunch of the deck lists, like hundreds, if not 1,000 deck lists, different iterations in the Discord server. Check that out. Same thing on Patreon would really help out. You could always go to PTCGOstore.com, plug in code Lesage5 to save 5% on your next order of coaching, or pick up a one-on-one coaching session with me and learn a little bit more about the game. I can help all players of all skill levels grow. That being said, I'm gonna go edit this video. It's it's like 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the morning. I'm just looking at the time briefly. So I'll catch up with everyone later. Peace out and have yourself a wonderful, wonderful night. I truly appreciate you taking the time out of your day to watch this video. It means the world to me. And my goal with this channel is to spread my love of the game and knowledge with our entire Pokemon TCG community. If you haven't already, help signal boost this video to other Pokemon TCG fans by liking it, sharing it with your friends, and subscribing to the channel. Hopefully we reach our goals really soon. Check out this recommended video, and have yourself a great day. Thanks.